Hey, how you doing? This is RJ. Today, really, all I'm going to do is ramble about the new Uncanny X-Men that's coming out because, well, I'll give you a couple of pictures in the background because it is exciting. I fully admit it is exciting to have the Uncanny X-Men back. And, I'm a big X-Men fan. I mean, I collected X-Men long before they were the all new, all different X-Men. I mean, I think my collection goes back to, I don't know, number 24 or something like that. So, yeah, it goes back a ways. And I did crazy things in the 90s, like when they put out the new number one, I bought like 120 copies of it. Just insane, crazy things I did. And X-Men was always something that I followed. And, I lost track of the X-Men. So it does seem exciting, but I gotta wonder how Marvel is going to handle this. And I'm giving you in the background the pictures of the variant covers. Now, first of all, I want to talk about the variant covers. Okay, there's going to be at least 20 variant covers for this thing, and I don't understand this whatsoever. I realize it drives up the numbers because if you look at the Fantastic Four, right? Fantastic Four, number one. Now, the numbers kind of vary depending on who you're talking to, but how many did they ship with all those variant covers? The new Fantastic Four that came out a couple of months ago is somewhere between 370 and 380,000 units is what they shipped. But for number two, they shipped 85,000. So that gives you the difference between what gets shipped with all of these variant covers, which was the number one, and what actually gets shipped without variant covers as a number two. So these variant covers make no sense to me whatsoever because you have variant covers here that I've been showing you in the background, and you have these major names actually attached to these variant covers. I mean, you got Art Adams, you got Rob Liefeld, you got Alan Davis. I mean, you got a lot of big names here doing these variant covers. But I got to ask the question, okay? First of all, it doesn't make any sense to me because let's say your normal book is between, I don't know, 24 and 26 pages, kind of. And the thing is that I always hear the fact that they can't use these big names anymore because, they're just too expensive. You can't get them to actually draw an entire book. It's just too expensive to do that. But why not? If you're paying Alan Davis and Art Adams and Rob Liefeld and a bunch of others for 20 different variant covers, why can't you just pay one of them to actually draw the number one? Why can't they do that? It makes no sense. It seems to me like they would be spending about the same amount of money. I mean, what they really should do is they should pick these old artists who are great X-Men artists, who are, historic, everybody loved X-Men artists. Take Alan Davis, pick Rob Liefeld or Art Adams. Have them do one issue each. And this would stop this whole nonsense with the variant covers. Really, it would. I mean, it would drive up the sales like all the way along. What they should do is take one of these great artists, pay them all the money which they would be paying for variant covers, and use that money to pay them to do one book. Because, of course, it wouldn't cost, I don't think, as much for an internal page as for their external cover pages. They wouldn't put the same amount of work into it. But doesn't matter. They're spending the same amount of money. Just have them do 20 pages and then have like 5 pages of a sub-story in the book, which is done by the regular artist who needs to be a top tier artist, but just, one of the up and coming guys. That's what they should do. And then every, say, 5 issues or so, do the same thing. Number one, you have your really old, historic, everybody loves artists like Alan Davis do the number one issue, and you have the 5-page other story from their normal artist. Then the normal artist would take over for the next 4 issues. Then number 5, they would have Art Adams do the same thing. And then again, you'd have another 4 issues of the regular artist. And then number 15, you got Rob Liefeld doing the entire book. I mean, this would take away from all of this rebooting everything every couple of issues, just cancel it, give it a new number one. This would get rid of the whole variant cover thing. I mean, really, that would drive up the numbers. I mean, that would drive up the numbers for every 5th issue, and you would have to tie in the story. Just make sure that you would tie in all of the stories so that if you're reading only number 1 and number 5, you don't understand what's going on unless you read 2, 3, and 4. And the same with, you read the big name at number 5, but if you skip over to number 10 to the big name again, you won't understand what's going on unless you read 6, 7, 8, and 9. I mean, really, why do they not do this? The only reason I could see them not doing something like this is because of the fact that what they're trying to do is replace their audience, like I always said, because this would draw in everybody from the last 20, 30 years of X-Men fandom. I mean, all of your comic buyers from the last 20 or 30 years would say, that is something I want. This is something I am going to buy. And once you get them in, I mean, do it for the first 20 issues, right? And then you get all of those audience, all of that old audience, and they're buying the first 20 issues. And then how many of those people do you think are going to come back and buy more and more and more? You know, this is a simple idea. Why can I not come up with these ideas? I don't understand. The variant covers drive me crazy, drive me nuts. But the second thing that I wanted to talk about was the internal pages. And you've probably seen the internal pages because I'm cycling all of them around here. The internal pages of this new #1 book. And I gotta say, this new artist is good. I mean, he's not a new artist, but he's not one of the historic artists that's doing the covers, right? But I gotta say, this first page, first of all, I'm hoping that there's not going to be SJW-ism in this. I don't know if I'm actually going to buy this book or not. I really want to, but you know, I'm going to listen to a bunch of reviews first and see how much SJW garbage is in it. And no matter how nice it looks, if it's got SJW garbage in it, I'm not buying it. But you got the first page where you have Beast and Storm, and they look like they're in Africa or some such place taking water samples. That does not bode well in my head at all. That looks to me like it'll be filled up with SJW dialogue left, right, and center. And I got to ask, when in the world did they start making Beast look like either the Shaggy DA or a roided out version of Nightcrawler? Why does he have to look like that now? That's ridiculous. I mean, he had a set look. Well, I mean, it did change very slightly when he went back to his human form and then back to his Beast form for how many years? Like 50? And all of a sudden they want to do this to them? Yeah, this is, I don't like that. But you have the other pages, and the other pages are all action, and I'm kind of liking the action, although I got to say, first off, you got the MLF there, Mutant Liberation Front, what it looks like to me, and they're fighting X-Men, although I don't know any of these X-Men. So what's going on here? Because I'm sure that if you are into X-Men now and you know all about all the titles that are out now for X-Men, you would know these characters, but I don't have a clue. And the only one that I have any clue about would be Glob, and that's because I read that idiotic X-Men Black mojo that came out there last month. But again, I got to ask this question. What is with this? This is 4 pages, right? This is 4 pages of these new characters, to me, new characters that are in a battle. Great, it looks like a great battle, but you have all those variant covers, and what do those variant covers do? Well, all those variant covers are showing you the old X-Men. They're showing you the old X-Men in their old form. I mean, these are covers to bring out the sentimental people to buy because of sentimental reasons. I mean, you have cover after cover after cover here of these variant covers just looking like different versions of 80s and 90s X-Men. And so why in the world are you trying to draw people in with your 80s and 90s X-Men and then not have them on the inside of the book? That's my worry. Again, they're only giving you, 4 pages, and only one of them shows a Beast that doesn't actually look like Beast, and Storm, who I would say probably doesn't act like Storm from what I've seen of Storm's behavior in the last little while. So, and again, I got to ask this question. You have all these people that are anti-Comicsgate, right? They're always on our case about the fact that we think that, we think that the 90s was the apex of all comic books and that we should all go back to how it was in the 90s. That's what they think we think about comics. Now, I got to say, I would pick something else in the 90s if you want to go with the apex of comics. But at the same time, here you have Marvel just playing off sentimentality from the late 80s and 90s. I mean, they want to draw in people through these variant covers by pulling on that string of, yeah, look, it looks like the 80s and the 90s. So Really, can they still start attacking us for wanting a 90s or 80s looking book when that's what Marvel has given us for these variant covers? It makes no sense to me. It makes zero sense to me. I mean, I'm loving some of these covers and they're great art pieces, but again, they don't seem to have anything to do with the story. They really don't. And of course, you know, if they did what I was talking about at the first, if they took this money and put it into internal art for these books of these old historic great artists, you know, this would make X-Men the flagship of Marvel again. But again, I think that's a little bit too much for them to do. They couldn't do that. They can't tread on that territory because, of course, they need to push Captain Marvel as always being the center of Marvel, and it is supposed to be the flagship, and they can't actually have a book that's going to look like it's outselling and outproducing and look like the flagship book of Marvel in what they're putting into it. Because if they do that, well, then Captain Marvel is going to be forgotten about, and they can't push their toxic feminist leftist agenda with their Captain Marvel books. So really, it all comes down to that simple point. I mean, all of these ideas that I've been throwing around here, they would be simple, and I don't know why someone hasn't come up with them, but I can see why someone hasn't implemented them if they have come up with them. They haven't implemented any of them because, of course, it would run contrary to their SJW nonsense, their far leftist agenda of pushing things in their books and making sure that the top is Captain Marvel or all of these other kinds of books which they keep rebooting because they have no audience. And it would put them to shame. I mean, if they did that with this book and you got all those X-Men people and fans back, it would just put all of those others to shame. It really would. Anyways, I really just have high hopes for this book because, well, they give some quotes from this, from the artists and from the storyteller for this book, and they don't sound laden with SJW-ism in them. I mean, you have Matt Rosenberg saying, "To me, Uncanny X-Men has always been the book that defined what superhero comics can be. It's a book that I learned to read with. It's a book that helped me understand who I wanted to be. And it's a book that I have always come back to as a fan. These are the characters that served as icons, heroes, friends, and even family for me and a generation of comic book fans. And now I get to bring all the X-Men together to save our world one last time and find out if anyone survives that experience." Again, if that's how he's going to write, if that's how the book is going to be done, great. That sounds great to me. You got Kelly Thompson, and I'm not that very fond of Kelly Thompson, but Kelly says, "I wish I could say writers don't love putting characters we love through rough stuff, but I think that would be a bold-faced lie. There's nothing I like more than making people laugh and fall in love and then really make them feel something and be moved, which sometimes means tragedy, and then making them laugh again. I think we've got a great emotional narrative at the heart of this event." That sounds good. And then you got Ed Brisson, I don't know how to say his last name. It says, "This series is about the X-Men fighting their own legacy, fighting against a world who fears them, yet a world that might be right. A world that has a reason to fear them, has a reason to fear what they could become. This is the ultimate story of X-Men legacy come back to bite them in the ass." And I did an entire video about this, just that sentiment itself, saying, you know, why do they not have a Mutant Registration Act? They really should. In this world that they have, where no one has a conscience and everybody is doing this SJW nonsense, I mean, really, they should have a Mutant Registration Act. They really should. And here's what the guy says, you know, people who fear them, they might be right. So all of these quotes from these people who are working on the book, I think, wow, they might actually pull together a good book. They might actually do it. And they might be doing it because they want to push the movies ahead, but this looks like something that could go in the right direction, that could go in an old Marvel direction. I hate the variant covers, but at the same time, it might be something worth buying. It's a ray of hope and it's something to look forward to at the very least test to see if it's going to be good. Because, I mean, the stuff like the X-Men Black Mojo, where you had the guy blabbing on about, well, the X-Men have always been a symbol for the oppressed, and Mojo is the symbol of the oppressor, who is Comicsgate. And, of course, once you actually bring the two together and they have a bunch of feels with each other, then the oppressor is not going to want to oppress the oppressed anymore. And I'm thinking to myself, just shut up, fella. Honestly, you're an idiot. But these people here, at the very least, if they are idiots, they're putting their idiocy away and saying what people want to hear. Let's hope it continues on into the book so that they give people what they want in a comic. And certainly in an Uncanny X-Men #1. Anyway, like I said, I just wanted to talk about this because, again, it's a ray of hope, I think, for Marvel, if they can actually pull this off. I have big reservations whether or not they can. But let's hope. All right, as always, hit like, hit the shield in the lower right-hand corner of your screen to subscribe, and leave me a comment. Tell me what you think of these pages. Tell me what you think of variant covers. Tell me what you think of X-Men coming back in this form. All right, I'll see you later. Bye.